Okay. Do you see it well? Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. It's great to be back to Literacy Pittsburgh during the tutor conference. I would like to thank you for having me today. And today I will try to tell you about my experience teaching our English language learners, especially at the foundations level. So let me tell you a little about myself. My name is Müge Gedlik. I served as one of the English language learning instructors at Literacy Pittsburgh from summer 2021 until summer 2022. And I taught 4 classes at the foundations and beginner levels, helping my students improve mainly their listening and speaking skills and make progress towards upper level English language classes. At Literacy Pittsburgh, I helped my students build speaking and listening skills that they needed for success in daily activities and social interactions. I try to motivate a diverse group of learners who wanted to achieve their educational and career goals, and I try to provide a welcoming and supportive learning environment to make sure that my students were engaged in their own learning. So I was born in Istanbul, Turkey, and I'm myself an English language learner. I'm also a first-generation college graduate, and within this context, access to educational resources, especially language education, has been fundamental for my empowerment while making informed decisions, shaping my life, and choosing the career path that aligned with my skills and interests. So providing this space is also very meaningful for me. I hold a Bachelor of Arts degree in English Language and Literature, and I hold a certificate in teaching English to speakers of other languages, especially adult learners. Upon graduation, I worked as an ESL instructor, English as a second language instructor in Turkey, and I have many years of experience working with adult language learners. I advise and facilitated the learning of hundreds of adult learners from diverse age, racial, and ethnic groups within academic context and beyond that. So I'm an avid language learner and teacher and also literature enthusiast. So from teaching languages, I switched to pursuing a doctorate in comparative literature, and I'm currently at Stanford. So let me show you a brief outline of my talk today. It's titled Supporting Foundations Level English Language Learners, and today I will talk about our ELL learner profile. I would also like to mention my approach to teaching, and then we'll see what is the content, what is the material that we have, what are the challenges. I will give you very brief examples of slides from my classes, and in the end, I will try to include some tips. And we will devote the last 20 minutes for your questions, and I will try to provide some answers or directions or materials. So our foundations level adult learners constitute a very diverse group of English language learners. Our classes aim to support entering, emerging, and developing adult English language learners, and they are diverse in terms of their cultural backgrounds, previous training, and language learning goals. Our students might be in their early 20s. They might be older with established families with various parental obligations. We also have more senior students. Depending on their age and family situation, they have different language goals. Some students would like to find a job, some want to help their children at school, others would like to practice their listening and speaking skills to feel more comfortable interacting with people in daily life. And at this level, we aim to provide content that help them use English to fulfill their basic needs in daily life, such as shopping for groceries, shopping for clothes, or going to the doctor. And in addition to these language learning goals, the students differ in terms of their previous training. They might be emergent readers and writers, or they might have very well developed first language literacy skills. Some key goals at this level are firstly to provide activities to enhance learners' speaking, pronunciation, and listening skills. And secondly, to develop learners' vocabulary for daily life and navigating systems, at the same time introducing them to the socio-cultural context of living and working in the United States. Now, I would like to mention a couple of things regarding how I approach teaching languages. As much as it is an intellectual engagement, teaching involves emotional labor as well. So teaching starts with us, teachers, instructors. So I believe it is important for us to realize what is our relationship to teaching as an activity. The question is, what is our approach to teaching? For me, it requires a lot of Sometimes it requires a lot of patience to teach at this level because we're building the foundations from the beginning. Most of the students do not have any prior English language training. And if you do not speak another common language, sometimes it is difficult to communicate about our expectations and teaching goals within the class. A research done in 2008 suggests that patience is particularly important within the context of teaching, and teachers who show patience and support to their students can have a positive impact on their students' success. And in this sense, I believe it is very important for us to foster a welcoming and warm atmosphere. When we show patience and compassion, it gives our students an opportunity to trust our choices within this teaching and learning environment and have faith in the requests we make of them. And classroom management procedures and explicit instruction are very important. And compassion is also about creating a learning environment in which we notice distress and disadvantage for all students, so that we can actively seek to reduce the barriers to their learning. And think about your students' personal situation. Do they have a comfortable environment when they're engaging in the class materials? Do they have stable internet access, or do they have a working computer or a smartphone that would facilitate their learning? Another thing is empathy. Empathy is a powerful tool, and it can help us better understand what's driving our students' behavior. And also, we can find strategies to help them. It can help us connect and work through difficult moments together. And another thing that I would like to mention is the student-centered approach we have. Within this pedagogical model, we try to minimize the teacher's talking time and maximize the student's talking time. The process of learning and what the learner does in the classroom is emphasized rather than teaching techniques or the teacher activity. Some examples for this would be to provide discovery learning, activity-based learning, task-based learning, eliciting from the students, focusing on pair and group work, and providing some more activities that would make students explore how they're learning. So at this level, we use a lot of visuals as well when we introduce new materials, and we try to limit our new materials to 5 or 7 items to not to produce or like cause a sensory load or learning load. We use TPR. TPR is total physical response. It's a method of teaching language and vocabulary concepts by using physical movements to react to verbal input. So when you like introduce a word, for example, run, you make an action, and then like the student gets the visual input and the like audio input together. And the purpose of TPR is to create a brain link between speech and action to boost language learning. It is important, I believe, when we give instructions as well. For example, when I welcome my students into the classroom, I would say, "Hi, welcome. This is teacher Müge. How are you today?" Things like that. Another crucial thing is that it helps students remember the language much faster compared to only hearing it in class. Another activity I would like to mention is drilling. Drilling is important because it helps students model what you're repeat what you're modeling. At its simplest, drilling means listening to a model first, provided by the teacher, and then repeating what is heard. This is a repetition drill, a technique that is used when introducing new language items, especially vocabulary. Most importantly, creating the space and devoting a time in the classroom for drilling provides a safe environment for learners to experiment with producing the language, the new sounds that they're hearing, and it helps them focus on pronunciation, hearing and saying particular words and phrases. Students can listen and then repeat words that sound difficult for them, and we can help them imitate the intonation that may be rather different from that of their first languages. It also provides a focus on accuracy, including complexity and fluency. I think it helps students improve their pronunciation and intonation. So being a teacher or an instructor or someone who is in this like facilitator teaching role, it is up to us to bring forth the drills during certain stages of the lesson. It depends on when you want to introduce new vocabulary. Sometimes we do it before introducing a new piece of reading or like before a listening activity. It can also give us an opportunity to provide immediate feedback on their accuracy, politely and effectively. So when we work to improve students' literacy skills, the main aspects we focus are on phonemic awareness, reading and writing the alphabet, the numbers, practicing reading comprehension, and helping students write their basic demographic information such as their first names and last names, countries, date of birth, their US address, and telephone numbers. We do a lot of decoding at the beginning level, and it is a process of working out how to say an unfamiliar written word. Spelling also can be a very fun and effective activity to practice individual sounds of the letters, and through spelling, pronunciation activities, and by connecting them to meaning bit by bit, we work on word recognition, and then we work on sentence structures, and in the end, we connect the sentences into paragraphs and like longer reading activities. One of the other strategies for this level is to create a routine that sets clear expectations and habits for students. During my time at Literacy Pittsburgh, I divided my classes into 3 main components. The beginning, I would welcome my students, they would greet one another, and then we would continue with our routine exercises. We would practice the days of the week, the months, the years, numbers, and in the middle, I would introduce new topic and activities. And in the end, as a closure, I would provide more routine activities depending on the unit and the theme or the day of the week. For example, we would practice talking about the weather or feelings. I would do weather on Tuesdays and I would do feelings on Thursdays. And before leaving class, I would remind students of the upcoming classes, especially dates and times. And at the literacy level, I think less is more. And it is important to regularly recycle the materials we're teaching. At times, you can also provide informational assessment activities to test your students' knowledge of the topics you have covered. What I mean by this informational assessment activities are the ongoing assessment activities provided by you, your observation of student progress especially. It can be a performance-based assessment, it can be a portfolio assessment. Okay. So I would like to give you some examples from my classes. I would always use the same slides at the beginning and also at the end to provide students something that is familiar. So I would welcome them. I would say, welcome to English class. Today is Thursday, August 26, 2021. Our class starts at 1 p.m. and finishes at 2:30 p.m. And this is teacher Müge. And then after welcoming them, so all my classes were on Zoom. So I would remind my students of the Zoom etiquette every day. Let's talk about English class on Zoom. Touch mute, you are silent. Touch unmute, now you can talk. I can hear you. Students can hear you. And then we would practice a greeting. And before each activity, I would tell my students what we were gonna do. I would say, let's practice a greeting. Let's talk about months. Let's practice the days of the week. And so this was this dialogue that I always use. We practice this dialogue every day without any exceptions. And I would do a chain activity. For example, sometimes I would have 6 students. I would start by addressing one student, greeting them, saying, good morning, how are you? And the student will respond. And when we finish, the student will ask another student and another student and another student. So everybody would have a chance to practice. We would go very slowly so that I could hear everyone using the dialogue and practicing pronunciation. Another part of the routine was to talk about first names, last names, countries, Pittsburgh, and neighborhoods to help students practice telling providing their basic information. And then again, I would use a prompt. I would do modeling first by providing my information. And then I would ask students to complete the prompt with their information and practice speaking. And then we will talk about countries. And then we will talk about what we do now to provide more information about our location. And then I would review the calendar with them. We would practice the months. First, I would go do one by one drilling. We would practice each month all together. And then I would ask each student to do the reading. And with more advanced students, I will take out the words and just put the numbers for them to practice the months and remember. And by this way, I would also provide an informational assessment activity to see who remembers the months, who does not, how much more practice we need. And then we would have more easier or more basic questions like, what is this month? This month is October. What was last month? Last month was September. I have all my slides under the Literacy Pittsburgh folders. I think you might have access to them, and you are more than welcome to use the structure or use all the activities as they are, or provide your materials. So some other informal assessment activities would be reading with partners, retelling stories together, role-playing, such as in the example of a dialogue, could be giving descriptions or instructions using visual and written prompts, could be oral reporting to the whole group, and then they could complete a dialogue or a conversation, or you would provide some games such as vocabulary games. There are a couple of websites where you can put the information and they create a game for you. So as I said, routine is very important, and some of the routine materials we would recycle very frequently would be the weather and feelings, colors and clothing, money and prices, and prepositions, depending on the units we have. So in terms of content and materials, we have 4 units. They are health, neighborhoods, shopping, and work. We mainly use 2 books at this level, English No Problem and Standout Basics. And we also have some foundation stories under the Literacy Pittsburgh folder, but they mostly help with practicing reading for accurate pronunciation, and they might have to be introduced after the students acquire a certain level of literacy. So I would like to mention some of the challenges I faced at this level. When I first started at Literacy Pittsburgh, we placed students in the classes as a mixed group of students with higher and emergent literacy skills. It was challenging for me because I was teaching online and some of the students go faster and would want to practice more, and some would need more time to practice. And there was like a huge gap in terms of level, even within the level of foundations. So after some time, I decided to move my students around and create an emerging literacy class and a class of low beginning English students with literacy skills. It helped me give more appropriate activities for each level. Another challenge for me was that sometimes students would not have the ideal learning environment. All of my classes were online and students would be joining from home. Some of them had obligations at home with little support and would engage in like childcare or cooking or other activities during class hours. I could see that they were very distracted, but sometimes I could not change the situation. Sometimes students will join and then leave and then come back. I think it might be very different within a like tutoring situation. So you're working more one-on-one or with like smaller groups of 2 or 3. You may not have the same challenges that I had. Another thing was the work schedule that my students had. Sometimes it would conflict with classes. Sometimes they would have changing work schedules. So regular attendance might become an issue. So before providing more ideas or tips, I think we should look at the environment in which we're teaching. Are you teaching online? Are you teaching in person? Are you teaching small groups, or are you teaching one-on-one? So before talking more, I would like to, if you feel comfortable, I would be happy to hear from you, your learning and teaching situation. How do you work? Who do you work with? You can just unmute and like introduce yourselves if you'd like to.
Hi, I'm Susan Netzer, and I currently have 2 students. I work one-on-one, and I've done this a long time, over 15 years with Literacy Pittsburgh. I've always done one-on-one. I was in person until COVID, and now I'm using Google Meet, and it's working fine.
Thank you, Susan. It's nice to meet you.
Meeting you also. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Smith. I a relatively new tutor in the last 2 or 3 months. I'm working online with a single person. We're doing it strictly through Zoom we're using, and so far it's been going pretty well.
I'm happy to hear. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Heather?
I'm Heather Wright. I have just been matched with a student from Turkey, and we will be meeting online
Great.
Hi, I'm Pat Harris. I have one student I meet one-on-one and a group of 3 students. I also meet both groups on Zoom. They're more at intermediate level, but I have taught beginning students in the past, and I'm always interested in reviewing those classroom skills.
Nice to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we also, as much as we have a diverse learning student group, we also have a diverse group of teachers who have a lot of years of experience, who are just starting to tutor. Some people work one-on-one, some people work in groups. I think it's helpful for me to hear how you're working with them. So what I'm providing, I think, is more applicable to groups of students, and maybe if you have 2 students or 3 students, the techniques I use might be more helpful for you. When you work one-on-one, sometimes you need to become the partner for your students. Sometimes you need to do the activities with them. So while doing that, you also need to be mindful of how they are working. So it's like doing like double sides. Okay. So again, I think what worked well for me was pair work if I had enough students in the classroom. With more advanced students, I would do group work. I would put them in breakout rooms and go through all the breakout rooms to make sure that students are practicing and each student has time to speak. And the chain activity I mentioned is like asking one student and asking that student to ask the other, and the other helped very, very much. And I think the tips I can provide, the major things are to provide clear expectations at the beginning of the class and review what you're gonna do during that class hour, and keep the routine of in greeting them, practicing dialogues, the calendar, the numbers, the basic activities. I like to provide on-the-spot correction if I can, to help students work with accuracy. And at other times, if I'm aiming fluency, I do not interrupt the students. I just take notes on student mistakes. And when we finish the activities, in the end, I would provide feedback of what went wrong, or ask students if there was a mistake in the statements or vocabulary or things like that. So I would like to devote this time for your questions. If you have any, please feel free to unmute or use the chat function.
I have a question. Müge, you said you listed the topics that you had in rotation. Tell me about prepositions. What was your approach?
So with prepositions, I would first use pictures for each prepositions, the same picture but with the ball and the box. I will start and do some like oral activities, asking them, where is the ball? The ball is next to the box, and we would review them all together as the whole class. And then after that, I would do the same activity with words and pictures, providing them the questions and the answers. And after that, I would do that again without the words, so that like I could see if the students remember the prepositions or not. And again, I would repeat this like a couple of times during the activity, and then I would start the chain activity. One student would ask, where is the box? And the other would answer. And the person who answers asks the next student, and then that person answers and asks. So I think it worked very well. And first I would do it with like the box and the ball. And the following day I would do it with like cat and the table, just like changing the pictures but using the same activity.
Okay, yeah, I've used the box and the ball.
Yeah, I think it's like one of the major activities we're using all together.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Müge, I often think back to how I learned foreign languages. Like I went to the Alliance Française and we did immersion, French immersion, using the old Berlitz courses where you could listen to tapes, on Tuesdays, I go to the supermarket, that sort of thing. And I tried to figure out how to incorporate these into what we're doing. I mean, like we have all these wonderful things like Duolingo now. Do you see any like, should we be encouraging our students to try to go down that path in terms of learning, like either trying to listen to repetitive tapes or how to listen or to do something like Duolingo?
I also use Duolingo to learn Spanish at the beginning. For me, I really like how you can like use it at any time during the day. It's very convenient. But to me, I think the social environment around learning and teaching is very encouraging for students to like push their boundaries. In terms of like the drilling activities like listening and repeating, I believe that it's more important to have someone who can like listen and give feedback at the end. Another idea that comes to me is that you can record yourself and send those recordings to your students to like listen and repeat at home, and then maybe they can record their voices and send them back to you so that you can provide feedback. I think it would be a helpful activity.
I have a question. So I will be teaching primarily, or right now, entirely online. Did you, as you were teaching, did you just create slides for all of your teaching that you then were able to supplement, or did you have physical things that you were holding and or like how did you find the best way to teach those things, to teach the principles? I have a low beginning ESL student.
So for me, I think slides work the best. I would have like physical materials, but I would put them in the slides because it's like then there is like just one focus, something big, and the students can see it well. Let me think about another thing. I think, yeah, I always use the slides, even though I had the physical copies, I would use the slides. And if like some of my students were willing to like go through the materials outside the class, so I would share the slides with them and then they would practice them. Or you can like prepare the slides, print them and mail them to the students to provide more like physical copies that they can look at other times.
Thank you.
Müge, could you talk about the foundation stories? I'm not familiar.
Okay. Maybe I can also find a story for you and show that. That's a good question. Okay, can you see it? Okay. So this is one of the stories within the neighborhood unit about crafting. we have like I think we were introducing the structures there is, there are, and it has or they have. So we have pictures and the stories. This was already made when I arrived. So it starts, this neighborhood is Crafton. They live in Crafton. It has a bank. It has a park. It has churches. It is hilly. It has a school. It has a laundromat. It has a grocery store. It has apartments and houses. It does not have a hospital. It does not have a gas station. So the story is very short, and first we would introduce the story through the pictures only, and the students would listen. I would read the story and go through the pictures. They would just listen. The second time, I would show the picture, say the sentence, and the students would repeat. And after that, I would show the pictures with the sentences. Again, students would listen and then repeat. And after that, I would ask each student to read the story through the pictures one by one. I think it helped them practice pronunciation, intonation, and also like the basic reading skills.
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, no problem at all. I think you can also like create a similar story.
Sure.
Yeah, depending on like where your student lives to like make it more relatable.
I don't want to hog the questions, but I have another one.
We have 15 more minutes, I think, so
Okay.
feel free to ask.
One of the things my students struggle with is saying numbers, especially larger numbers. Do you have any suggestions?
Like the hundreds or the thousands?
Yes.
I would go like start with the end. Maybe I would say, for example, if we have like 1998, I will start with 8, then go 98, 1998, and then like complete it, and maybe like provide a couple of activities, reading it that way, and then like reversing the order and starting from the beginning to the end.
Thank you. They're very creative about how they say them, but they're usually not.
Well, I think sometimes it is also helpful to know if there's any differences in the way that numbers are said in their language versus English. Like the French, for example, you have 99, which is 4 20s plus 10 plus 9 is 99. And it causes like when they say the telephone numbers, it's all in, two numbers. So I think that makes a difference too.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. To practice that numbers, the addresses and things related to that, I have a lot of activities. I can ask Christina to share my folder with you, and then you can go through like the materials I have created so that like you don't spend a lot of time creating them, but just like go through and select the ones that might work for your environment.
Great, thank you.
Do you have any other questions or any questions related to the activities or the themes that you're teaching?
Well, I could ask you a question just as us as tutors. When we fill out our timesheets, I guess, everything, at some point it asks you, you know, whether you're using a textbook or you're using your own lesson plans and things like that. Like the way that you teach, do you have to create your own lesson plans? Or is that something that you could just take from, you know, one of the textbooks that already had pre-written lessons plans?
So the book that I used did not have a lesson plan at all. Sometimes it was challenging to write the lesson plans, like to find what activity corresponds to what skills, or like, yes. For that, we had a sheet that the like previous instructors created, and they would write all like the codes related to like practicing certain activities. For like reading for accuracy, they had a code. Reading for comprehension, they had another code. So I would go through all the documents for each unit and try to like find and match them. Yes, it was a bit challenging. If you did not have like the learning goals set out within like the textbook. I would do that myself, yes. Any other things, anything you'd like to see that I've taught in terms of the things you want to teach?
Is there a particular game that you're doing on Zoom that you think works well? I used to use games a lot when I met in person, but I've kind of shied away from them on Zoom. So, but they can be fun. Students like them, I think.
I had a vocabulary game. Let me try to find it for you. Let me try to find it. I'm not sure if I can, but if you have other questions meanwhile, please feel free to ask. Jim?
Yeah, I'm finding a need to supplement a lot from the, you know, I have the standout book, but I'm finding a need to supplement either with additional vocabulary word or even additional exercises, because you just need a lot of repetition, I think, as you pointed out. So I don't know if there are any good resources out there for vocabulary or creating exercises aside from me just doing it myself. I just typically write it up myself.
Yeah, I had the similar like problem. So I had to go through like Google to find like the activities, or like to find vocabulary activities tests that would work for me.
Yeah.
I have some of them like already created. Like and I like put them under like topics and like themes. So maybe you can go through them and see if there's something that will work for you. I would create them myself and like mostly depend on Google or ESL Learner or teacher websites.
Yeah.
And Müge, you said those resources, they're on the Literacy Pittsburgh on our Google Share Drive.
I think so, yes.
Okay, and you said I could ask Christina, she might know where it is. Okay.
I think she
And
then,
then, yeah, and if it's okay to share, I think it'll be best, whoever would like it, if you could drop in your email in the chat. I'm going to copy and paste your email address, and and I could send that information to you guys. So I think that'd be a great time to do that, if you don't mind just dropping in your email address.
Okay, so this is mine. You can also reach out to me with any questions after this meeting. I can think of like the resources and the platforms and the links that I use, and I can share them with you as well.
And Miguel, I see that you're on here. Will the chat be saved also? I'm just, since it's recorded.
Yeah, you'll get to, I think it'll download a transcript of the chat.
Okay, and then I will have their email saved
Mhm.
on here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So it should download. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So one platform that you can use to create vocabulary is the Quizlet.com, and you can create flashcards and they will show like the pictures, and when you click them it will turn and then show you them the word. I think this might help you review vocabulary, and you can keep all the like links together so you can send them to your students and they can also like practice at their own time.
So you could use that for irregular verbs, maybe?
You can use it for regular verbs. You can use it for prepositions as well, as we discussed before. What else? Sometimes you can insert GIFs or GIFs in the PowerPoint slides. I would use them to practice verbs to show the action. And also I would like try to find something funny to like attract their attention into the material as well. It worked really nicely, I think. This is the link to the website to create the flashcards. Do you have any other questions or things that I would like to show you?
I have a question for you, Müge. What about, what if your student doesn't understand something or a concept? What would you do? Like, how do you review? What would you do in that instance if the student doesn't seem to understand the concept?
So I had a couple of strategies. I tried to find visuals related to each thing that I wanted to introduce in class. I would first start with that. If it didn't work, I would try to find an example in a situation and try to maybe role play that environment. And as a last resort, I would just like translate what it would mean in their own languages to explain that. But it would be my like last resort.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay, thanks.
And I sometimes use like translation, Google Translate, to communicate like key information about like canceling classes or like holidays or vacations to make sure that students like really understood that.
So it looks like we have about 5 more minutes left in the session. I guess if we don't have any more questions, I guess we can all go back to the main room. And I believe there are closing remarks. And I do have I have everyone's email on here, so that's great. And again, I will reach out to Christina to find your PowerPoint slides, right? Is that it? Müge? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. And then I'll probably reach out to you by email too, if need be. Okay.
Okay. If not, Christina, I think Gretchen also knows where they are.
Okay. Okay, perfect. I will make a note of that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.